Downhauer, the Heat 1 and Heat 2 winners respectively, line up on the front row of the grid. Loris Hazemans, our championship leader, lies 8th on the grid. Now, mathematically, Hazemans just 4 points ahead of Andre Castro in the championship, 19 points ahead of Tobias Downhauer. Lasse Sorensen, is he even in the entry list here this evening? Not seen much of him, no. Lasse Sorensen, 4th in the championship, not out. Brian Krell's 5th in the championship, is racing. And Alan Day, 6th in the championship, is racing. So if they can have a good run, Brian Krells and Alan Day, they will still be in touch with Loris Hazemans. But Loris Hazemans, Andre Castro have had the consistency so far this season. They seem to have, whilst there's been incidents and accidents, they've largely either been in the right place at the right time to avoid it, or have just sort of swerved their way around it when it's happened, Andre.
Sorry, I missed the last sentence.
I was just saying that Loris Hazemans and Andre Castro have, if there's been incidents and accidents, they've been in the right place at the right time to avoid it, or have managed to swerve their way around it in most occasions. No, we've lost him again. So we're getting no response from Andre. We will bring him back in as and when. Might be just rebooting a few things at his end there. So lost all sound. Now let me just check at my end. So the producer might just confirm in my ear that my audio is going out, which would be useful. So I'm assuming Stefano can. So I'm okay. It's at Andre's end where he'll need to work on his audio to try and work out what the issue is. We'll get the race underway. Now, remember, this is a 30-minute race. Now, this is where also tyres come into consideration, because if you work the tyres a bit too hard, and there's quite a few twisty sections here at the Roval at Zolder, where you can either overload the fronts and overheat them, overheat the brakes as well into the heavy braking areas. Of course, you've got quite a few slow corners, which then, accelerating your way out, you can start to make the rear tyres overwork. So tyre preservation could be something that comes into play here over the course of a 30-minute race. Andre Castro, Tobias Downhauer, row number 1. Ulysse Delso, Alessandro Brigatti, row number 2. Alan Day, Davide Dallara, row number 3. Guillaume de Flandre, Vladimir Stjoitsis, row number 4. Loris Hazemans, Stefano Gustavalle, row number 5. And row number 6, just to give you that one, Brian Krauls, who is right up there in the championship standings, lying 5th, has alongside him Michael Brautigan. So that is the order of the first few rows, and as we get the race underway now, understandably, it's another good start from Andre Castro, who is looking to try and break everybody early on. We're following the car that sits there in 4th place at the minute, Alan Day, a double former NASCAR Whelen Euro Series champion, having won the championship back in 2017-2018. It's all looking rather tight further down through the order by the look of things, but everybody, I think, has safely made it for the first few corners. They're 3 wide heading into some of the corners, and somehow Michael Brautigan avoided making contact with the cars that were both drivers left and drivers right, so he was able to continue, but that all looked rather close there. There's already a bit of damage, though, to the tail end of Alessandro Brigatti's car, which has dropped him well and truly down through the order from his starting position. Vladimir Stjoitsis gets a bump as well. That's spun around Nave Talor, who might get collected here, and he does. He gets collected by 2 or 3 cars that were unsighted as they were accelerating their way from the transition, but that was no fault of Nave Talor's, really. I think he was knocked into a spin. I think Fred Gabion's also involved as well in that one, so he'll be dropping well and truly down through the order, but several cars already sporting damage. No such worries, though, for Andre Castro, who leads the race, uses all of the curbs, bounces the car up onto 2 wheels, both through the right-hander and through the left-hander as well, leading by 3/4 of a second from Tobias Downhauer in 2nd position. 3rd at the moment is Ulysse Delso. Alan Day sits there in 4th position. Guillaume de Flandres and the championship leader, Loris Hazemans, down in 6th position, the way things currently stand. So if Andre Castro hangs on to the lead of the race, Loris Hazemans lies down in 6th position. That would mean that Castro would take up the championship lead and would be leading Hazemans by 20 points. Heading into the final round that takes place at Zolder in a couple of weeks' time. Alan Day, we ride on board with the number 24 Monster Energy back PK Car Sport Chevy. Accelerating his way back onto the oval section of the circuit, trying to pick up the toe off Ulysse Delso, who lies ahead. You can see the leading 2 have broken away now from this pair fighting over third and fourth position. Marin Kramer's a long way down through the order at the wheel of another one of the Feed Vict racing cars. Henry Tuamala just ahead of him at this stage, the Finnish driver. But Ulysse Dalsault doing a really good job of hanging on to a podium spot here. Bounces over the curbs again, does Alan Day. Gets a good exit this time. He might have half an opportunity here, heading up towards the next of the corners. Can he squeeze his way through at turn number one? Almost gets the nose of the Chevy up the inside, and this time through, I think he's going to do it here. He's got the inside line through the next corner. Can he cover off Ulysse Dalsault? Yes, he can. So there's no opportunity to try and respond. Ulysse Dalsault drops down into fourth position. Alan Day picks up third place. By the look of things, Andre Weigold still struggling with a few technical issues. He'll come in as and when he's ready. Here's a replay. Alan Day gets up the inside at turn number one, has the inside line at turn number two, and has just enough momentum to get across the nose of the RDV competition Chevy by the time they head up towards turn number three. So job done for Alan Day. What can he now do about trying to close in on the cars ahead? Alan Day lies sixth in the championship standings coming into this race here this evening, and has had wins, has Alan Day. He's had three so far. Two of them were heat wins in the prologue event at Daytona and at Brands Hatch, and his other heat win came last time out at Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit. Here's our championship leader, Loris Hazemans, lying in sixth position at this stage, which is still good championship points for him. Remember, it's double points, so it's 62 points if you finish in sixth place rather than the regular 31. Hazemans looking to try and gap that car there, which is Davide Dallara, the Not Only Motorsport Chevy, who has got Brian Crowells right behind him. You can see the Brax Racing Ford. Has he got the inside line here? Crowells, is he going to go through? No, he's just too far away. Doesn't want to stick the nose of the Ford up the inside the Chevy just as yet, so has to be content with sitting there in eighth position. But a great little fight this is. So through the next little section, Crowells still all of the time trying to see whether he can open the door. One of the team member cars, so running car number 300, remember, so 378. If it starts with a 3, that means it's a team member car or a media member, and that is Brian Crowells, who usually works on the number 91 car for Brax Racing. Gets a good run again on Davide Dallara, but again is not going to quite be able to feed his way through. So rather frustratingly, he's still bottled up behind. But these two, despite the fact that they're squabbling, they're not losing a great deal of time to the championship leader, Loris Hazemans, who is still only just a second up the road from them. So there's Hazemans in sixth place, and looking the distance, you will see not that far away the next couple of cars coming through. In fact, there they are, right behind. Back to third place again, Alan Day. Let's have a quick replay. Fred Gabillon with problems and lots of smoke coming from the back end of the RDV competition Toyota. He got tangled up in that incident with Nave Talor and now joins an ever-increasing list of cars that sit there in the pit lane, including Vladimir Tioitsis, who was going really well, and he's now also sitting in the pit lane, as is Stefano Guslivalle. There's a few cars that have had issues and are now out of the reckoning in this one. They will still score championship points, but are not going to quite add to the tally than they would have wished. Gasper Danovsik using all of the circuit limits again once more. He did that a couple of times in heat number 2 and just still seems to not quite get the breaking point right. Back to the fight for what is 6th and 7th place. Davide Dallara, the Chevy, looking back at the Brax Racing Ford of Brian Crowells. Onto the brakes, in towards the chicane where Crowells uses all of the red and white curb, avoids the sausage curb. Davide Dallara on the power a little bit quicker there, was able to work his way into a slightly increased advantage. They both go past the Autodrome Most show car as well. Ivana Venzarova staying neatly out of the way. She goes a lap down. This is one of the closest of the battles that we've got at the sharp end at this stage. Just 0.3 of a second between this pair, fighting over 7th and 8th in the race. 60 points for 7th place, 58 points for 8th place. And all of the time, Andre Castro out front and leading by what is now 1.8 seconds he leads by. So it's all beautifully going to plan again for the American. Ulysse Delceau, former EuroNASCAR 2 champion, the Frenchman sitting there in 4th place. Here is our race leader, Andre Castro. Remember, he did win a race overall, but that was the prologue event at Daytona on the road course, so no championship points were available for him. He won that race arguably with a bump and run on the final lap, which helped his cause. Alan Day was less impressed with what went on there on the infield section of the Daytona road course, but Andre Castro has kept his nose fairly clean ever since, and Kraus has made it through. Right, finally it's all paid off. He's got himself through and ahead of Davide De Lara. Davide De Lara also lights the rears up coming out of turn number 11 and 12, which has dropped the Italian ever more back away now from the Belgian Brian Krolls. And we might just be able to get a replay of exactly what happened there. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, just a neat overtake as he squeezed his way through going into one of the bus stop chicanes. Ulysse Delceau in 4th position, since being passed by Alan Day, has just ever more dropped away and is now beginning to fall into the clutches of Guillaume de Flandre, who sits there in 5th position. We ride on board with the Belgian driver, his RDV competition teammate, sitting just ahead at this stage. They won't want to bump into each other. They're both racing for the same team. In terms of the championship standings, well, Guillaume de Flandre comes into this race lying 21st in the championship standings. Didn't do all of the rounds, Guillaume de Flandre. Ulysse Delceau is 9th in the championship standings. So if team orders count, and each of the teams do have their own radios to be able to communicate to each other, team orders would suggest leave Ulysse ahead. He might be the slower car perhaps at this stage because he has got caught by de Flandre and dropped ever more away from Alan Day, but championship points, every single one or two of them, could be important. 9.5 minutes of the race completed at this stage. Traffic now starting to be an issue. Alan Day has caught a little bit of traffic in 3rd place, which might just allow Ulysse Delceau and Guillaume de Flandre to begin to close in, and Alan Day is still bottled up behind the traffic heading up in towards turn number 1. He gives one of them a nudge and spins it round, and then that makes contact with Guillaume de Flandre. Well, that was all to do with the back marker traffic there. De Flandre quickly hooks the gear, gets the car pointing in the right direction, but he's going to lose out to Loris Hazemans. He's going to go through. The championship leader picks up a place, and therefore that's an extra couple of points. And that was all to do with traffic just not getting out of the way of the leaders coming through. Let's have a quick look. Alan Day, yes, 2 cars busy battling ahead of him. And as he looks to try and squeeze his way through and past one of them heading up towards turn number 1, again, they just didn't get out of the way. They bounced over the curbs. It was car number 89, which is Fabio Spatafora, I think, who then got knocked sideways by the Monster Energy Chevy of Alan Day. And as a result of that, as Spatafora went sideways, he spun back round again and made contact with Guillaume de Flandre. But to be fair, the traffic should have moved out of the way and made it a lot easier for the front runners to get through. So Andre Castro leads. The gap that was 1.2 seconds is now half of that. It's down to 0.6 of a second. Tobias Dauenhauer has been pushing very hard over the course of the last few laps. Now, Tobias is one of many drivers we've had racing in the EuroNASCAR Esports Series in conjunction with iRacing, with support from i.cin.com and Sim Racing League TV. He is one of the drivers that has been involved in the recruitment program for EuroNASCAR. Tried one of the cars over the course of the winter period. Previously has done things like ADAC GT4 and Blancpain, as it was called, and has raced in the Spa 24 Hour, but he will be a very welcome addition to the grid for Hendricks Motorsport, such has been his performances in the Esports Series. He is ahead of this car here, Alan Day, who sits there in 3rd position. Giorgio Maggi, the runner-up in EuroNASCAR 2 from last year, is having a bit of a torrid time of it. Down in 15th place, Henry Tuamala, and that's Alain Muscaron, both ahead of him. So Muscaron, the white car with the light blue to it, sitting there in 13th. Henry Tuamala, the white car but with the darker blue flashes to it, sitting there in 14th. And Giorgio Maggi, the runner-up in the EuroNASCAR 2 Championship, behind them both at this stage. So there go all three. 13th, 14th, 15th position. Speeds all begin to build again. All of them having had good seasons last year as well. Muscaron managed to stitch up the Elite Club Championship, as it was called last year. Henry Tuamala managed to win the Challenger Championship, finishing 15th overall in the series, but he was the Challenger champion for the older drivers in the championship last year. And of course, Giorgio Maggi was at the tail end of that field, was the runner-up in the EuroNASCAR 2. Now, De Flandre, since being tipped into the spin, is carrying a bit of damage to his car, which means that he has now not just lost out to Loris Hazemans, he's also lost out to Brian Krabels. Let's have a quick look at another replay. Alan Day, here it is, on board with Alan Day. You can see the traffic ahead needs to get out of the way, really, and Fabio Spatafore just not bothering. Up towards turn number 1, Alan Day, you can still see eases off the brakes. Spatafore jumps over the curbs directly ahead of the back marker. Alan Day keeps his foot in, makes contact, light contact on what was already an unsettled car, but I'm sorry, traffic should have known that the front runners were coming through and should have made it a lot easier, particularly when you're scrapping with your own teammate. So now here comes Guillaume de Flandre for the second time now, about to get past Davide Dallara. You see, yeah, that is 4 position now. That's 7th place gained for Guillaume de Flandre. Up to 7th. Davide Dallara down into 8th position. Claudio Sabatini doing really good things again at the wheel of the Circuit Ricardo Tormo Ford Zilla Ford in 9th place, and Alessandro Brigatti, who dropped like a stone with damage in the early stages, now back inside the top 10. But since pushing hard, Tobias Stauenhauer, bringing the gap down from 1.2 seconds down to 0.6 for the lead of the race, he's dropped back to 1.2, 1.5 seconds again. So keeps shuffling and changing all of the time. Quick replay of Chris Lehman. What happened to Chris Lehman at the wheel of his Marco Steep Motorsport car? Lost it on the brakes going in towards one of the chicanes, and yeah, almost clouted the wall, just avoided making heavy contact with the wall. So Andre Weigold, I still think, just trying to sort out his technical issues. He'll come in as and when he's managed to resolve them. We still have over the half of the race to go, so there's plenty of time for him to resolve those technical issues that he's having at his end at this stage. As we look back at our race leader, Andre Castro, leading by 1.8 seconds now. The charge from Tobias Stauenhauer was as hard as he could push to bring the gap down. And whether as a result of pushing, the tyres have gone off, and maybe the back markers have had a part to play in it as well. But Tobias, you could still see, working hard there. The tail end of the car, after he hit the curb, started to get a little bit unsettled, particularly through the transition as well, as he went off the infield section back onto the oval. Traffic ahead for Andre Castro, which he deals with without too much trouble. So there's still a back marker between the car we ride on board with and the race leader, who is just up the road. Stauenhauer in the straight line is able to squeeze his way through and past the traffic, which means that the gap first to second has just come down again a shade by 0.4 of a second through that traffic. Another quick look at a replay of Alain Muscaron is this, who's going to make a mistake ahead of us. Now this is where the two parts of the infield section run together with each other, and didn't quite see what was going on there with Alain Muscaron, so we'll come back to that perhaps a little bit later. Now, yeah, right, so let's have a quick look. Now, Henry Tuamala is going back up through the order. Guillaume de Flandre has gone down through the order and has got lots of damage to his front end. So that was perhaps, yeah, that was perhaps the replay that we were trying to get there. The fact that Guillaume de Flandre has got tangled up, maybe with Alain Muscaron, and that's what's caused damage, and severe damage as well, to the front end of his car, Guillaume de Flandre. So you can see the whole bonnet missing off the car now, and that is going to drop him well and truly down through the order. And that is also going to have hampered Alain Muscaron's run as well, because he's now dropped down into 15th position. The gainer out of that was Henry Tuamala, who's now moved up to 11th place, and up to 12th place now comes car number 277, which is Gustav Berggren. So the Flandre leads. We have got 13 minutes of the race to go, and hopefully now Andre Weigold has managed to sort his technical issues and rejoins us in commentary.
Yeah, I think so. It's not perfect right now, but I can understand you. I have the sound back. I don't know what caused the troubles. I've done everything to reboot the whole setup. But yeah, hopefully it works right now. So I missed half of the race. I have seen nothing. So Andre Castro is leading, okay, and Tobias Downhauer is second, Dale third, Delso is fourth, and then we have Hazeman. So again, we have two Hendrix Motorsports drivers in the top 5 with Hazemans and Downhauer, and Andre Castro in the lead. And yes, a big gap between him and Hazeman. So maybe we see a lead change in the overall standings, because they are just separated by 4 points, and with double points on the line, I think Andre Castro may be the new championship leader after this race when he's getting it to the finish line.
Yeah, he's getting it to the finish line because the traffic has had a part to play in this one. Tobias Downhauer was 1.2 seconds adrift. This is for you, Andre. Now you're back in commentary. He brought the gap down to 0.6. And as soon as he'd done that, a bit of traffic and maybe overworking the tyres means that he's dropped the gap again. Now, there's damage to the front end of Alan Day's car now that wasn't there earlier on. We saw him get tangled up with Fabio Spatafore, the back marker, who didn't get out of the way. When he pitched Spatafore into a spin, Spatafore then made contact with what was Guillaume de Flandre and put de Flandre into a spin whilst they were all battling. So the traffic's coming into play again now by the look of things. And Alan Day, I'm guessing, will tread fairly gingerly through the traffic, which again is not exactly making it easy for him. It seems as though not only motorsports have driven some fairly wide cars here as quicker cars have been trying to come through, but it's really up to the quick cars to find their way through. But when they've been two abreast on occasions and not necessarily squabbling for positions, you'd have thought they'd just blend out the throttle and allow the quicker cars to come through, but hasn't been the case. And Alan Day is going to have to carry that damage now for another 11 minutes, with 19 minutes having gone. Ulysse Delso working his way through a bit of traffic as well. When you get damage to the front end of these cars around this kind of circuit, how much does it hamper your ability to go as quick as you could do previously?
I think it's a very big disadvantage for Alan Day, because first of all, you have the aero damage, of course. You have the long straights on the oval parts, and I bet he's losing power too, because when you have such damage on the front, the radiator may be damaged, the engine may be damaged. So I bet he's not able to get all the power out of his V8 engine right now. But we see that Alan Day is still able to lap some traffic, guys. So he's still fast enough to hold in third. But I bet an unexperienced race car driver in the sim racing world would have big problems right now. But Alan Day is managing well. But now he has to take a little bit to take a look at the temperatures too, because water temperature, oil temperature, and stuff like this could be rising up with the damage like he has on the front of his car. So we have to take a look if the engine is really holding for another 10 minutes, because yeah, it's not easy to manage temperatures on a track like that without losing a lot of pace.
We're looking at Aurélien Dillier at the moment, who sits there in 16th position. He's got Alex Fontana behind him. That Ford of Alex Fontana has dropped a long, long way through the order. The driver that's really doing amazing things in this one, I don't know what happened to him in qualifying, but up to 6th position now. Marin Kremers, in fact, now up to 5th. Up to 6th place. Oh no, 7th. They're jumping around all over the place at the moment. 7th position, Marin Kremers, has gained 20 positions from his starting position. So at the moment, he's on for the extra 8 championship points for gaining the most places, subject to official confirmation. But that's a good run through the order. I suspect some of that caused by cars around him having had problems. Quick replay, Aurélien Dillier is ahead of Alex Fontana. And as they head through the right-hander, yeah, Dillier runs a little bit wide. We saw him do that in one of the earlier heats. Alex Fontana tries to get the nose of the Ford up the inside at the next corner, and the Toyota just turns straight across the nose. And Alex Fontana, I think, had to get on the brakes there to avoid contact between the pair of them. Back to our race leader. Andre Castro now leads by 5.6 seconds from Tobias Downhauer, who is safely past the traffic now, so can clearly see the race leader up the road, albeit disappearing ever more into the distance. Alan Day is still there in 3rd place, carrying that damage, but has got a couple of back marker cars between himself and Ulysse Delso, who sits there in 4th place, who looks to have no damage at all on his RTV competition Chevy at this stage. So Ulysse Delso on for good points. That will help him clamber up from what is currently 9th in the championship standings. And I think I'd be right in saying this would be his first overall podium in one of the main races in what's been a tough season for him. Traffic staying out of the way neatly there as well for Ulysse Delso. That is sensible driving there from, I think, Max Palumbo, who got out of the way, and Ivana Benzarova, who has been lapped for the second time now, but is still doing a good job representing Autodrome Most, the Volkswagen employee from the Czech Republic. So Ulysse Delso very much on his own now in 4th place. He's lost time to Alan Day as a result of the traffic, and he's going to get caught if he's not careful by Loris Hazemans. Just having a quick look last time through, Ulysse Delso 1 minute 24.9, Loris Hazemans 1 minute 24.4. Yeah, so the gap came down by half a second. So Loris Hazemans, the championship leader, will keep pushing. 7 minutes still to go. He knows at this stage, if things stay the way that they are, that he's going to lose the championship lead to Andre Castro. But it's still going to mean that it's going to be rather close heading into the final championship round at Zolder, Andre.
Yes, it's going to be a very close final race at Circuit Zolder, a track everybody in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series knows very well, as we had our season final in the last couple of years at this Belgish track with a lot of tradition and historic. When you take a look at the Formula One races that were held there, DTM races and stuff like that. So, and also the EuroNASCAR is a big part of the history of Circuit Zolder right now, and to be there in the virtual too to celebrate the final race of the EuroNASCAR Esports Series is something very special. And I think Andre Castro has a good chance of winning this race here today at the Charlotte Roval, gaining a lot of points, getting into the lead of the overall classification, and becoming a specialist for a very interesting type of track, because he won at Daytona the road course track, a combination of the oval and the road course section, and now he's on his way to win the Roval track at Charlotte, also a hybrid between a oval and a road course. So he's our Roval hybrid mixed specialist in the field, I think, in the virtual world at least.
Yeah, Andre Castro would be on 273 points if he stays where he is at this stage. Loris Hazemans would be, what's that going to be, 12 points behind on 261. Tobias Dowenhoward will move up to 248. So it would all start to look rather close at this stage. And Alan Day, if he finishes 3rd, he would end up on 224. So it would still be within his grasp if he had a good one and others around him had a bad one at Zolder, to maybe lift the EuroNASCAR Esports Series crown, of course, in conjunction with iRacing, with support from i.cin.com and Sim Racing League TV as well. So I think we might be having a quick look at another replay possibly of what happened to Stefano Gustavelle. Let's just have a quick look, and here we go. No, back to Tobias Dowenhauer we go. Couldn't quite see the replay there. Who sits there in 2nd place, Dowenhauer, and won his heat, added another victory, but it's looking as though he's going to have to give second best here to Andre Castro. Andre Castro potentially on for his 2nd main race win, but his 1st one that actually counts towards the championship, because the previous one, as I said, was on the prologue and won as a result of a bump and run on the final lap, which Alan Day was at the receiving end of. And whilst there were no championship points up for grabs, Alan was perhaps less impressed than Andre Castro was. I haven't seen the favour returners yet. Alan Day did say it was coming at one point. Oh dear, there's lots and lots of damage, unfortunately, to Ivana Benzarova and the Autodrome Most car show car, which has had a bit of an incident somewhere as it comes over the start-finish line, and it's going to have to head surely into retirement now. In 15th position, Alain Muscaron is managing to hold off Aurélien Dillier, because he damaged the front end of Muscaron's car following a problem that he had earlier on. This is a battle for 15th and 16th position, but we've now only got 3.5 minutes to go, and with a 6.5 second lead, Andre Castro is surely Andre Weigold just going to drive at the pace that he's happy with, make sure he takes that extra split second to get past the back markers, and then finally he's going to win a main race that carries championship points.
Yes, I'm sure he's clearly the favorite in this race. He just have to get those 3 minutes left on the clock behind him and then finish cross the finish line to get his first official championship win. And I think what we see right now is Andre Castro, Loris Sesemans, Lasse Sørensen, those guys are dominating the EuroNASCAR Esports Series. Hendrix Motorsports is doing a great job. TF1 Racing is doing a great job. And I'm really curious if they can get this momentum they gained in the virtual world also in the real world, because, yes, of course, EuroNASCAR will start its 2020 season very soon in September 12 and 13 at the NASCAR GP Italy with the Autodromo di Vallelunga. It's the first time the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series will visit that track. Afterwards, in October 3rd to 4th, we will visit the circuit Zolder at Belgium. Then we will head to Germany with the October race 17th and 18th at the Hockenheim Ring. Then we have in November, the 14th and 15th November, the race at the Autodrom Most in the Czech Republic. And then the final race, 5th and 6th December at the circuit Ricardo Tormo at Valencia. So I love this virtual racing. We saw a lot of great stuff going on, but I'm really looking forward for the wheel thing to start very, very soon. But I'm very curious if they can get this momentum over to the real world and get those drivers at the front in their category when we have the EuroNASCAR Pro and EuroNASCAR 2 back on track. So that's what I'm very curious of, if they get this transition, real world, virtual world, and if they can take any advantage out of it, gaining a lot of momentum here right now.
I was thinking exactly the same thing earlier on today. You know, you look at some of the performances that have been put in the virtual world, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these drivers out there and seeing what they can do. My video footage has gone very, very laggy over the last couple of minutes, so I apologise. We've got just under 60 seconds to go. Andre Castro still leading from Tobias Downhauer and Alan Day as we look at Ulysse Delceau, who sits there in 4th place. Back to the race leader once more, who is now going to be onto his final lap, because it takes about a minute and 19 seconds to do a lap, and there was less than that when Andre Castro came over the start-finish line. We spoke to him at the end of his Heat 1 win. That Heat 1 win that he took earlier on this evening was not his first of the season. He's clocked up more wins than anybody. He's had 6 wins if you include any of the races that he's won, whether it be a heat, a last chance race, or a main race. Well, he's now potentially on for win number 7, which not only moves him into the lead of the championship, it will make him the most winningest driver that we've had in the EuroNASCAR Esports Series. And it's got things beautifully poised as we head towards Circuit Zolder for the championship finals in a couple of weeks' time. Clock now shows 30 minutes have elapsed, so Andre Castro just needs to head back up onto the banked section of the oval and then start to head towards the checkered flag. It's been a great performance from him. He did say that pole position was important, particularly with the tight chicane that is used on the rolling lap, and he's just now heading through turn number 11 and turn number 12 for the final time, sliding the tail end of the car through the transition onto the oval. A bit of opposite lock having to be done there to gather up the moments. In fact, no, where is he? He has just gone through the chicane there. Right, he's now halfway around the circuit, Andre Castro, is he? Yeah, so just heading into the infield section of it. He's not quite as far around as I thought. And yeah, no, he has gone through. He's gone through and grabbed the win. Apologies, my footage is bouncing everywhere at the moment. Tobias Downhauer finishes in 2nd position. Alan Day finishes in 3rd place. Ulysse Delceau in 4th, and erstwhile championship leader Loris Sesemans finishes in 5th place. Brian Krolls comes through and finishes in 7th. Davide De Lara will finish in 8th position. Marian Kramer's 9th place means that he has gained 20 positions from his starting position on the grid, finishing in, well, it says 7th on the live timing, it says 9th on the graphic, which is slightly confusing. And after Kramer's, it's Alessandro Brigatti. But donuts and celebrations being done by our drivers, but the biggest smile all round will be by Andre Castro, who wins the race and is going to be leading the championship subject to official confirmation on 273 points. Tobias Downhauer finishes in 2nd place. That will put him on 248 points. Alan Day finishes in 3rd place. That will put him on 224. Ulysse Delceau finishes in 4th place. He'll go to 203. And 5th place will go the way of Loris Hazemans, which means that he will be on 261 points. We'll just do Brian Crowell's because he's right up there in the championship. He finishes in 6th position, Brian Crowell's, which means that he will end up on 218 points. So 273, Andre Castro, the championship leader. 261, Loris Hazemans, if my maths are correct. And 3rd in the championship will be 248, which is Tobias Dauenhauer. Confirmation of the results, though, for that race. Andre Castro claims the win from Tobias Dauenhauer in 2nd place. Alan Day in 3rd. Ulysse Delceau, Loris Hazemans and Brian Crowells complete the top 6. Davide Dallara was 7th, ahead of Claudio Sabatini in 8th place. Malan Kramer's the biggest climber in the field with 17 positions gained. In fact, no, he's not the biggest climber. He finishes in 9th place. 10th place is Alessandro Brigatti at this stage. Alex Fontana was 13th. Gustavo Berggren was 14th. Alan Muscaron